think I was just kind of on self-destruct. I thought, well, if no one's going to pay attention or acknowledge me, then what's the point of me listening to what they have to say? I'll just do my own thing.
I've been in trouble with the police loads of times, and it's all alcohol related, and it's always violence and things to do with violence or theft or stuff like that.
Brighton, on the south coast. This is a city that provides a good quality of life for most of its people. Yet for some, living in the more difficult neighbourhoods, their lives are far from easy. With these diverse and contrasting communities, Brighton has been chosen to pilot the government's new initiative, Every Child Matters. Its ambition is to give every child the opportunity to realise his or her potential. For older teenagers, as they step into adulthood, this is an exciting period of their lives, but it can also be a period of disillusionment. David Hawker is the director of the newly created Brighton Children's Trust. For him, 15 to 19-year-olds are the most difficult age group to engage with. His task is to bring together all the council's agencies to tackle the issues that hold this age group back.
It's about young people learning to be adults, learning to spread their wings, education, training, youth support, connections. It's Every Child Matters, providing a real launchpad into the adult world.
Some of the kids around here I'm a role model. Some of them look up to me and they always say to me, I want to be just like you. And I'm like, no, you don't want to be just like me. I've life. You don't want to be like me. You don't want to have no job. You don't want to be dropping out of school.
I think maybe, I don't wish she's not here or anything, but maybe if I didn't fall pregnant at 16, I might have gone on and done more at college.
An important aspect of David's work is meeting the youth workers who work directly with young people.
As you know, we've been moving on this Children's Trust line for the last couple of years or so. This is a real step forward in terms of making the Children's Trust a reality for young people, and bringing together the services in the way that we're planning to do is an important staging post in doing that. Every Child Matters is probably the most fundamental change in public policy that we've seen for a generation. It's really, I think, quite remarkable how the whole of the policy has shifted around from it being driven by lots of policies to being driven by the needs of children and young people themselves. So it's kind of turned everything inside out. And it's based around what children's needs are, what their aspirations are. The 5 outcomes of Every Child Matters are absolutely superb. You can basically get everything into them. Being healthy, staying safe, enjoying and achieving, making a positive contribution, achieving economic well-being. And I say to people that if you've got those 5, you actually don't need anything else, because everything else fits into one of those 5 or more of those 5. And once we've got that rounded picture of our aspirations for children and young people, actually they came from the children and young people themselves. That's what they wanted for themselves. It's what parents want for them. It's what all of us working with them want for them. A reality for young people.
David outlines his vision for an integrated, seamless service.
I guess that we've got a real vision to make the whole thing as seamless as possible. The careers work, the connections intensive work, the youth work, the statutory sector, the voluntary sector, all the professionals actually understanding what one another does, and all together as a team supporting our young people.
Luke is 17 years old. He lives on the White Hawk estate in Brighton. He was frequently excluded from school and has a history of violence and petty crime. He is one of the many young people that Every Child Matters is designed to help.
My mum and dad split up when I was young. I was about 5, and I was going through a little bit of a hard time then, but that was nothing major. I still see my dad. I was labouring for my stepdad. He was a plasterer. I was a trainee plasterer. It was good money, but I messed it up by turning the cameras around at work, and the site got robbed. And the boss asked me what I thought about it, and I told him I didn't care, and he said, "Oh, I was sacked for my attitude."
For those young people that are outside of, or in a sense, the sort of remit of what Every Child Matters is about at the moment, so as you know, those young people that are sort of getting towards sort of 17, 18, 19, I think what we've got to look at is we've got to look at this, it's looking at the whole provision, that 0 to 19. It's kind of making sure that we don't lose sight of that at any one time. So whilst there is a preventative work, I think, in terms of looking at the lower age range, I think it's about what I've welcomed is the kind of the return of the sort of phrase, in a sense, preventative work. And I would say that youth work has been very much about preventative work. And what I would say is working with a 16, 17, 18-year-old would be about looking at options, looking at life choices, helping them evaluate what they've done, where they've got to, where they would like to go.
At the moment, I'd like some money. So my ambition is to make some money at the moment. But I was working, but I don't really want to go back into employment yet. I'm just going to look for a bit and that. But no, my dream is to be a rapper. I wake up in the morning and ask myself, what you doing with your life? You've got to sort yourself. So I started writing lyrics and I stayed away from crime. I've done this every day, one step at a time. The days will pass, so would the weeks. At the end of the month I had a whole book of lyrics. I started shotting drugs to see me through, so I could go out clubbing, hanging with the crew. People telling me I was good and that, so I believed in myself, performing good chats, getting on the mic and selling out the clubs, getting free drink, getting free drugs, getting all this, doing the thing I love, but I weren't getting paid, that was bad enough. So I started getting better, still doing my thing. When I get up on the mic, clubs would be jumping, then they wanted me to come back and MC. Finally they were paying me, until the day I become a famous MC. Last time I was in trouble with the police was about 3 weeks ago. I got a Section 5 of the Public Order Act. I got into a bit of bother one night and old Bill pepper sprayed me, and I got away and they couldn't catch me. My mates actually jumped old Bill for me, so it helped me get away. And then I had another charge, which was offensive weapons ×2 and violence down the Brighton Marina Bowlplex.
But today Luke is staying out of trouble and has agreed to attend a youth services review meeting. It's his chance to have his say on how the service could be improved. Interested in what Luke and others have to say is James Dugan, Children's Services Commissioner.
Today, what we're here for is for you to express your views, to have conversations with each other, for you to actually mull over ideas, and for us to listen.
We need to ensure that young people are in attendance and that they're properly involved in order for this to be successful. So I'm asking all of you who are managers and heads of service and head teachers to take responsibility to actively encourage your staff so that they can support young people in order to get involved. And I'm sure you all agree that this is a really crucial part of this review.
We go there and we tell them what we want done in Brighton and that, and what things we'd like to see, and all they ever do is take notes down, and then we never get told nothing what's happened, and then nothing ever happens. It's just a load of So I just wasted basically my day again, and I've been to loads of these meetings before about things I'd like what young people in Brighton and Hove would like to see in the community and that. I think another thing that scares people off college as well is because if you go to college, you can only go work a couple of days a week, you're not earning enough money, and that's what some people want now, isn't it? Is money to survive and that. So I don't know, maybe if colleges and things like that as well started providing a little bit more education money.
That's a really interesting point, that isn't it? I mean, in terms of what we're just talking about, it's kind of like Brighton's got a lot going on, and
Despite Luke's cynicism about the review meeting, there is a growing feeling amongst the professionals that Every Child Matters isn't just another government initiative that will run out of steam.
It's not just another government scheme. I mean, the government has been leading it in many ways, but it has taken off. It's captured the imagination, and all around the city, the city here and the system nationally, you've got people who are actually getting what it's all about. From all sorts of different sectors. I've talked to magistrates, I've talked to early years practitioners, I've talked to school governors. As soon as you explain to them, yes, it makes sense. That's what it's all about. So it's not just a government initiative, it's something which has captured the imagination of thousands and thousands of people who work with children and young people.
Luke's early troubles led to petty crime. Laura's early teen problems were through a lack of support at school and low self-esteem, binge drinking and a teenage pregnancy. She has a 7-month-old daughter, Keisha.
15 years of age I was when I first had sex.
Prior to having the baby, emotionally immature, definitely. She was all over the place. She always seemed to be looking for something and was never seen to be satisfied with what was on offer to her. She always wanted something else. Grass was always greener elsewhere.
I fell pregnant at 16, had her when I was 17. Before I went to secondary school, I loved school. And then once I got into secondary school, where you had to work so much, I didn't take to it very well. I never had one sex education class at school, not one at all. I mean, you learn about a few odd things in science, like biology, about the body, but I never actually learned anything about sex in school.
She's definitely sexually promiscuous. She thinks, I say to her sometimes, you forget, I am your mum, I do, and Laura's not very good at lying. She would tell you something and you'd know that what she was saying, but it got to the stage where if you was to confront her about it, she would stand and have a blazing row with you and deny it and get upset and cause massive disruption, rather than just turn around and admit that's what had happened. As far as I know, being sexually active, I think she told me it was about 15. I feel myself that she was probably sexually active before then.
I went to secondary school in Brighton and they found out that I had ADHD and that I was dyslexic, and my mum had been saying to them for a while that she thought I was dyslexic, and they used to say that I was just being lazy in lessons and not bothering. And then once they realised what it was, I got some help in some of my schools, but not in all of them.
She had a lot of negative feedback on her behaviour. She was a lovely baby, beautiful baby, good like Keisha, well behaved, not a wicked bone in her body. And even now, she can be a but she's got heart of gold.
If I can find somewhere private that will take housing benefit, they'll pay my rent.
She was floundering before she'd even started secondary school. They realised then that her reading age was only 6 years, 5 months at 11. She had a really tough time catching up. If her condition had been diagnosed earlier, then she wouldn't have had so much negative feedback, which she could have gone on to school and developed her self-esteem. I had to get a consultant from the hospital to come into the school, had to arrange a meeting. The school, Senko, never even knew anything about it. They never knew about these things they could do during lessons.
It was left to Laura's mother to get the help she needed. And it is this lack of communication between the professionals that the Children's Trust is trying to put right.
It's making sure services cover the gaps, and are accessible. I think one of the key things which as a detached youth worker, as I said, in working in the sort of city centre, one of the things that we sort of saw a role was that often services, if not careful, could open up, they could be placed and expect young people to access them. We've got a great service, it's going to be really good for you to be part of this, and it is a brilliant service, fantastic service, but how do young people know that it's there? How do people access it? Do they feel they've got access or ownership of it? And I think one of the key things is making sure that services, it's the gaps in between. And it is that what Connections came from was bridging the gap. And it is about sort of, you have a service here and a young person has to make a transition across to another. So they leave school, they make a transition to work, or they make a transition to employment. That's where the gap appears. That's where the danger point is. Have they got the skills, ability, support to get across those gaps?
The answer does seem to be a coordinated approach that involves all the relevant agencies. And this is what is at the heart of Every Child Matters.
When you get multi-agency working going well, then there's a huge benefit to the child, because you're talking about professionals working together instead of in isolation, providing a coordinated service instead of fragmented services. And ultimately, the outcomes for the child, particularly if they're a child in need, are much, much better. They actually get a sense of it all works together rather than it's all, a confusion.
Helping make it all work together is the Common Assessment Framework, or CAF as it's known. How this will work in practice is still being discussed at the Children's Trust Board meeting.
Working with practitioners on piloting aspects of the Common Assessment Framework, the big message that's come across is that a Common Assessment Framework should not be about paperwork and forms, and if it is, then it's not going to succeed, and it's about common professional practices that put the family and the child at the centre of the way that people are working. So we're focusing with staff on getting the guidance for those clear and building a training programme that effectively delivers that, because the message from staff when we've talked to them about previous change processes is that not enough has been put into support right down from the top to the bottom, support and understanding about what's going on, but also effective training that covers all the aspects of professional practice.
We see this as a positive.
The thing for me with any sort of bringing together of partnerships is kind of like how organisations actually communicate to each other. Kind of it could be a grand vision, and a grand vision may never work because some of the little nitty-gritty, some of the little bits of glue, the oil is not there. So I think it's important not to forget some of those things which are kind of what maybe minor details on one level. On a strategic level, they seem quite minor in terms of how an organisation communicates with another organisation, or how workers identify themselves in other organisations, or how people fill in forms, how people actually just do the very basic things. The devil is in the detail, and if we're not careful, we can miss out on that. So my concern is that we learn from history.
You can bridge that gap to create those opportunities and develop those skills which aren't about GCSEs and all those sorts of things necessarily.
Again, it's like say you didn't have a very good schooling, but your main interest is music and you want to be more advanced, like going to college and that.
Yeah.
Some colleges might not want to take you on that because you have got no other qualifications.
Yeah,
Some of them you have to have certain qualifications
That's
to get
meant to be
into.
like really good at the music biz, but not the school biz, and then you're not allowed to go to college just because you ain't got no...
people off going to college and stuff.
Because I couldn't read all right. By the time I got to senior school, because I still couldn't do it, it just got even worse. And I had to just about all the time. And that's the only way to get through a lesson then, was just to be naughty and get chucked out and just run around the school and that, setting off fire alarms, swearing at teachers, just being disruptive. There was a couple of all right teachers, but what I hated in school was being told what to do. So say like I didn't want to do something in school, that's it, I didn't want to do it, and the teacher would try and get me to do it and I would just be like, no.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Nigel Lewis is head of the youth offending team. He knows only too well the problems of dealing with disaffected young people.
Some people say, oh, it's not about how services are constructed. And I think it is, actually. You've got to have a very clear consideration of things.
I mean, as we were identifying in that group, there are certainly gaps in terms of delivering early family support services that somehow aren't there at the moment, that need to be in their services around domestic violence. And that general thing just about joining up different agendas. My take on it is that part of it is a product of the different funding streams that we have currently in terms of different areas of service delivery, and the social policy that we're now seeing played out is about trying to join those back up again, really, through local area agreements. It just presents us with an interesting challenge.
When I first got arrested was when I was 14, and me and two of my mates broke into an empty flat for the night with 3 girls, and we lit a fire to keep warm, and the next day we got nicked. And I started kicking off, and I had 5 old Bill chuck me to the ground and handcuff me.
When I first started drinking a lot and buying it myself, was after must have been when I was 14. We would take a bottle of vodka out with us, and we'd go along to the beach, and then we'd meet up with boys that we knew and just flirt with them, drink, smoke, and come home early hours in the morning, or go and stay at someone's house if we've just met them as well. So.
Youth offending is part of our service, actually, and we've got social workers, we've got teachers, we've got family support workers, we've got psychiatrists, all in the youth offending team. And it's important that we should care for the young people who are caught up in the criminal justice system and regard them as children in need, and provide with the services in terms of getting them back on track, reintegrated and ceasing the offending behaviour. So we do provide the diversionary activities, the youth inclusion project and so on, which are really very effective in terms of preventing reoffending.
The Trust is looking at new ways to prevent reoffending for youngsters like Luke. One of the things they are trying is a multimedia arts project run by team social worker Jo Bates.
My role is a number of things. First of all, it's to build relationships with young people in the community that have come through the court system. I have to work with young people to try and reduce their offending behaviour or stop their offending, primarily by building good relationships and enabling young people to look at themselves, think about what they're doing, try and look at the wider picture of their life really, think about where they're going, what life means to them, who they are, how they've got to where they are. Today we're doing a multimedia installation project. So I'm working with a group of young women that are all sort of working with the youth offending team in a variety of different ways to create an exhibition. The project's called A House of Our Own.
I can have like birds and butterflies and stuff, and then that's like have stars.
Yes!
You know what I mean?
Totally, brilliant. Yeah, that's lovely. Your writing is so nice. The point of the project is to enable the young people to do something productive and meaningful and try and build their confidence and self-esteem, help them to try something new, you know, take a risk, and help them to get out some of their emotions through in a sort of creative medium. For a yacht, you do work in a multi-agency environment, so I've been doing it a long time really, because yachts were sort of the pre-runners of multi-agency work. I think it's great personally. I think it's good to have other people's perspectives on things. It's useful to be able to, to consult with someone on something you might not know about. How much have you got to get in there? 2 verses?
Yeah.
It's good because people are going to come right up to have a look at it. That is amazing, isn't it?
Lovely.
Yeah, it's wicked, isn't it? I think young people that come through the youth justice system are often criminalised first, but they're seen as offenders before they're seen as young people. So you've got to try and get beneath the surface of the behaviour, look at the reasons, try and understand what's going on before you can really put in practical strategies.
While the arts project is helping the girls stop reoffending, a less creative approach is used on Luke.
Because I hate doing work for free. I should be getting paid. Then again, I shouldn't have committed the crimes that I committed. I'm doing community service because a couple of months ago I was drunk and I was down the Bowlplex and they confiscated my beers off me, a whole crate of Stella, and I weren't happy. So I got on the bus home off and I see my little rounders back sitting there. So I picked it up and thought, I'm gonna try again. Went back down there, bouncer, you see it up my sleeve, so they pinned me up and pulled it out and got me nicked. So I got done in court for offensive weapons ×2 and violence.
Well, I think there's a variety of sort of entry routes into assistance, if you like, dependent on where young people go for help, and maybe that's what needs to be clearer in terms of, and probably having a kind of less stigmatising route into accessing services, because it tends to be either through, through GPs and a health route, through maybe through some of the voluntary sector kind of drop-in facilities that I think are excellent. I suppose which reflects the kind of complexity of the construct of services that we've got at the moment.
For Luke, the services offered by the statutory youth sector don't provide him with the specific help he needs. He turns instead to the Crew Club, a voluntary youth club on one of Brighton's toughest estates.
Crew Club is a provision for young people aged between 11 and 25. When it first started, it was set up for a group of young men aged between sort of 16 and 18 that were hanging around in a large group on the estate. In Luke's case, I think it does show the sort of value of a project like this, and that how some young people, when they get over the age of sort of 17, 18, feel that there may not be services for them to then buy into, and this project can keep them in touch with those services and also work practically with them while they're here as well.
The voluntary sector play a very, very important part, and they're partners around the table in most of our strategic discussions. So it goes everywhere from the early years all the way up to youth work. They provide advocacy, they provide the kind of value-added services where you capture volunteering and you capture the, if you like, the extra resources which are not quantifiable in financial terms, but come in and actually contribute to the richness of the system. And I'm very keen that we should be viewing this whole thing not as a consumer approach, you know, how much do you pay for what you get, but as a contributing approach. How much can you bring to the party? How much can your contribution enhance the whole? And that's, I think, some of the spirit of what the voluntary sector brings to it, which we effectively all need in this new service.
The Crew Club isn't just about keeping the young people off the streets. It also celebrates their achievements at the annual awards ceremony.
This event this year and last year is about young people, and the less adult intervention, in my opinion, the better. We do need adults to talk because that's what makes it work, young people and adults working together. But this event is all about young people.
The Brighton and Hove Youth Awards are an award that's based at 3 levels. You've got bronze, silver and gold. It then leads on to things like Duke of Edinburgh Award, and then hopefully leads on to them, you know, succeeding in college and in work. I think it increases their self-esteem tenfold because some young people don't experience that feeling of achieving something.
The forum is a good way of addresses the needs of youth people. It also works as a mechanism for drawing in funding.
The Youth Awards are just one of the ways in which Brighton's teenagers are rediscovering their self-confidence and ambition. For Luke, the future looks more positive.
I see myself growing out of things to do with violence or theft because I wanted to start looking to the future now and like writing lyrics and stuff, and maybe I really want to become an MC, so that's what I'm going to be doing from now on, writing lyrics.
I'm trying to get a flat at the moment. Once I've got my flat, I'm hoping to go back and study becoming a midwife and not have to be on income support for the rest of my life. Certainly want her to be smart and learn. I think education is a good thing, not a bad thing, like she's being punished because she's got to sit at school.